welcoming you to this conference in which not only are we talking about agents of faith, but in some sense, of course, we are ourselves become agents of faith. 25 years ago this month, the Bard Graduate Center opened its doors to its first class of students, almost 500 of whom have since come in and then exited these doors. In the director's first letter, in that first catalog welcoming students, she talked about the way in which decoration or ornament was a universal human activity. Now, that idea of the universality of ornament or decoration could be seen as part of the institutional genome, expressing itself little by little over time as the creature that was sent into the world back in September of 1993 aged and grew in size. It's probably the case, however, that it's only with this exhibition in which that universality is itself the subject. It's, according to the director of the gallery, from whom you'll hear in a moment, Nina Stritzler-Levine, this is the 80th exhibition produced by the Bard Graduate Center, an extraordinary number in what is a short time for so many exhibitions. It's the first, however, devoted to a subject which we might crudely and superficially, and I'll only use the term once, describe as religion. In fact, more precisely, it's the first exhibition we've done where the subject of the exhibition is not a time or a place or a type of object or a medium or a person, but the human. And that's a very important thing to think about with the retrospect of that first director's letter. So that's the first thing I want to say. The second thing I want to say, looking ahead, not back, but ahead to the next 25 years, and the way in which this exhibition project, in some sense, represents the coming to maturity of an institutional idea. This is an exhibition that began as an idea, like many, that became a course, that was a conference, that was a publication. The course itself was taught to graduate students here, MA and PhD students, was taught to undergrads up at Bard College, that involved travel around the world, discussion both here and abroad with eminent scholars, that brought together at various times, like today, professionals from the museum world and the academic world, that crossed the lines of classroom and lecture hall and seminar room and gallery, that crossed the lines between one discipline and another discipline, between the humanities and the natural sciences. In that sense, the expression of the institutional genome, right, towards the edge of discipline, towards the fusing of the applied and the basic forms of research, all driven towards the primacy of the question, right, to which and for which these various kinds of institutional, human, and intellectual resources can be marshaled. That is where the future of not just this institution, but no doubt the future of the humanities lies. And so it's a very exciting stock-taking moment for this institution, standing really between past and future, to look at this exhibition and its surroundings not only for what it represents in this moment, significant as it is, but what it represents in terms of both the past and the future. So I will stop there and finish my welcome to you by handing the podium over to Nina Stritzler-Levine, the director of the Bard Graduate Center Gallery. Thank you.
Good morning. So this, as Peter said, is our 25th anniversary, and I'm going to dig in for a moment because that is a very important, thing to celebrate, but also to discuss. So I have 5 minutes. I'm going to stick to 5 minutes. 5 minutes, 25 years, but okay. First of all, my charge must be acknowledgments. A project like this comes together after I was said this morning among a small group of people, a lot of hard work and a lot of people contributed. I especially, of course, want to thank Professor Curator Ittai Weinryb, but also two other people. I think they're both in the audience, Marianne LaMonica and Caroline Hanna. Marianne LaMonica, Chief Curator of the Bard Graduate Center, Caroline Hanna, Associate Curator of the Gallery, who worked with Ittai as a curatorial team on this project. Although not here, I must thank the extraordinary David Harvey, who created the magnificent exhibition design, the designer of the book that accompanies the exhibition, Laura Gray, and our amazing team of preparators and installers who time and time again bring amazing quality to what we do. I also want to thank my director, Susan Weber, and I have to say, especially Peter, because we are here because of his leadership and his vision and his efforts to, I should say, bridge the divide between the professorial and the curatorial, which is in fact what I want to just quickly discuss now. So this moment that corresponds to the start of our 25th anniversary is too important to let it slip away without making the following argument. By way of introduction, I want to argue that this symposium, you, the audience, the speakers, of course, the exhibition, agents of faith, votive offerings across time and place, are evidence of a shift. An ontological shift from being in the great divide to being in the after of that great divide, after the great divide. By the great divide, I am, of course, referring to what has become known. Ivan Gaskell is here. He came from sabbatical to be here, and he is going to know quickly what I hammer about all the time. I'm going back to it quickly again. The great divide between the university and the museum, or the separation in practice between the professor and the curator. The two art histories was the name of the groundbreaking symposium. Ivan was there at the Clark Institute that resulted in a publication after that in 1999. We learned from the book that followed the symposium how one of the participants expressed the depth of the divide between the two art histories as follows, quote, "If temperament, inclination, and chance play significant parts in the art historian's choice of career between the museum or the university, the activities of those careers seem to be taking their practitioners further and further apart," unquote. Well, what in retrospect we know about that conference is that it actually simultaneously reflected the depth of the divide, the further and further apart, and the inevitability of its end or its after. That was evidenced by another participant in that conference, the art historian Alan Wallach, who, when describing the differences between professorial and curatorial work, at least as far as the practice of exhibition making is concerned, explained, quote, "Exhibitions tell stories in space. A successful exhibition is not a book on the wall, but a carefully orchestrated deployment of objects, images and texts that give viewers opportunities to look, reflect, and to work out meanings," unquote. So let us together here, at long last, decades after the Clark Conference, agree that we are in the after of the divide, and that most importantly, our task is to understand what this after means, what it is, how we construct new sets of relations, new discursive configurations through the joining of the professorial and the curatorial. Now, it must be understood why I have shaped my remarks around what might seem like an elusive notion of after. That is because the question, when is after, happens to be our institutional theme for this academic year. And in the thoughtful prose by Dean Miller, who actually curates the site, the place on our website where you must go to learn more about this after, he elucidates the discourse around this question. He positions the theme, when is after, in relation to what he sees as our institutional project of looking back in order to move forward. Well, this morning I want to position the ontological shift I just described slightly differently. I want to describe it in relation to another dimension of our institutional practice, and our institutional project. The one that is about investigating now, this moment, this after, the contemporary, in order to move forward. That is what Agents of Faith actually is doing. Yes, it is largely comprised of objects made long before now. But the curatorial thinking, as Professor Curator Weinryb has noted many times, and this is about my favorite thing when I listen to him give tours, he says, the exhibition moves us to think about and see ourselves now and project those thoughts into the future. Professor Curator Weinryb has achieved many things with this project, but to me, the single most important one is how, in the role of Professor Curator, he is showing us what it is to be in the after of the Great Divide. That the after is now, and now is the way of moving us forward. So with that, I would like to introduce Professor Weinryb, and I would like to say that you can come to the exhibition too today. Please sign up if you would like to after the symposium for a tour that Ittai Weinryb will lead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nina and Peter, for the introduction. The tour that I'm leading is at 5 p.m. today. If you want to register, our student Drew in the welcoming desk will sign you up, and do it quickly because we're running out of spots. Otherwise, the gallery is open today until 6 for anyone who wants to come in, free of charge. So please do that over lunch, or if you just get tired of listening to me. I want to echo my colleagues in thanking both academic programs led by Peter Miller, and especially Laura Minsky, who brought all of us together here today. On the exhibition side, Nina, the director of the gallery, Caroline and Marianne, my partners in crime, as well as David, the designer, Laura Gray, the catalog designer, and those who have not seen the catalog yet, you should see it. It's really remarkable. I think it's probably the best thing you can do with your money right now, so go buy one. It's a good investment. It's a good votive investment. Alex and Eric and all of their teams, James and his teams do make chairs appear and disappear immediately without anyone noticing. So thank you for all of them. They are the silent participants in this endeavor. Now, over the summer, we installed a very complex digital AV system that even I don't know how to master. So let's try this. No. Let's try this. No. Oh, these things? You think? All right, good. Thank you very much. Freddie Jacobs, ladies and gentlemen. All right. I'm very happy to be here today. So it's a very, 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 very important moment for me. And I'm going to read a short introduction and say a few things and start as quick as possible the day itself. So sometime in 1951, an owner of a donkey got up one morning and carved a leg of his own donkey in wood, only to later offer it to the church. To make sure the gods are not confused about the donkey in question, he had attached a photograph of the actual donkey, so there is no confusion in regard to who is he speaking of. This donkey is actually in the exhibition that we have here today. I chose to begin this conference today not just with these objects, not just because it is one of my favorite objects in the show, but also because it exhibits the ways, the many ways, the uniqueness, the questions and the problematics that votive objects offer us. The first is, of course, the labor of love. The amount of time, effort, and physical bodily labor invested in carving and varnishing a wooden leg. The second is the question, of course, of mixed media. What is about representation of an actual physical human or animal body part in different media? How does one create affinities through material objects that is different than the medium of photography? And where does sentiment, human emotion, and passion fit into all of this? And more so, the question that bothers us all, does it actually work? Was the donkey healed? Was his foot recovered? And maybe more important to our intellectual and academic endeavor, did the owner of the donkey actually believe in what he was doing? And did he believe that the donkey leg deposited in the church will work wonders for his own donkey? Long ago, Paul Veng asked if the Greeks actually believed in their myths. And when it comes to votives, one always puzzled whether the makers of votives, whether it is donkey legs or wax boys or terracotta uteri, were actually supposed to work. Did the people who give them and make them actually believe in what they're supposed to be doing? Did locks on fountains in Iran or the practice of tzatza making and offering is actually supposed to work or to do something for you as a human being? And were they thinking that this actual working would have an effect of their daily living then and now? Or is it all just psychology? And the essence of the practice of votive giving is for us to finalize, complete, and bring together a psychological process to an end, which maybe is the way for us to think about modernity and how a small lassie dog with a moving inscription that reads, built and painted by a 12-year-old boy who died a 21-year-old man, March 23, 1968, Ian J. Franks. Love, Mom, Dad, Ron, Andy, and our families that you never met. Maybe this is that connects everything, to people charging objects with sentiment, to votives functioning as bandages for the soul, and for humans finding different ways to express materiality, express materially their most intimate dreams, hopes, and anxieties. Sorry, this inscription is always moving for me. So I think I read it in the past 2 days about 15 times to people, and every time I can just not continue with this thing. Go see it, it's in the other galleries. There is also the labor of love invested in these things. The donkey leg, which we can assume somebody invested around a week to make. Iron animals not made by Picasso, but actually by devotees, making them in iron, and those of you who know how to make iron know that it's a very, very complex endeavor. Wax object like these made by our friend Hans Hipp from Pfaffenhofen under Ilm, or wooden leg that is carved and then engraved. Tzatzas like those taken by photographs by Chandra Reddy, an anthropologist, showing the tzatzas made in Dharamsala in a metal mold and then inserted with animal fur as a devotion by people who swore not to wear fur anymore. So the idea of making here is very important. If you go to the galleries, you see a whole videos of how to make tzatzas. This labor of love, or this practice, is also relates to what we are interested here in this institution is, of course, technique of making and the way in which making affects the finalized objects, not just materially or technically, but its significance to the human condition. The exhibition itself that you're going to see in the other galleries began in 2010 in a symposium. Then I spoke on the lone rider found in a depository in the Auvergne. Of course, we couldn't get the depository and we couldn't get the lone rider to the show. And there, back in 2010, I wonder why he chose to carve himself in, with a horse and deposit that wooden horse on top of a natural fountains. Questions developed, and I grew or matured or whatever since 2010, and the checklist of this exhibition grew and developed. One object, for example, which I knew only from a black and white reproduction from a book about Etruscan votives from 1962, was then in Senegal, as you can see here in the caption, was then in Senegal, in Dakar in Senegal, and only in 2012 was purchased by the Louvre, and that's why, and that is the reason that we can have it here with us today. Back in 2010, this black and white, this is one of those small Italian books, you know. So this very little black and white reproduction of this almost mystic figure, which is Nina's one of Nina's favorite objects, came to life in the Louvre, and even more so here in this exhibition. Other objects, those from the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, were never on display, and this exhibition is the first time that you can see them. And through visits to the storage facility, and this is a photograph of the storage facility, we managed to uncover the richness of that collection. Mexican retablos, mainly dealing with migration, something that in 2010 was not really that hot, but in 2018 became an extremely charged topic. Mexican retablos that are now decorating the third floor of the exhibition were found in a storage facility in New Jersey or in Princeton, as well as the many 100 objects that came from the National Museum in Bavaria, have not been on display in almost 40 years. So there's this moment as well. And one object that we didn't bring to the show is, of course, votive bread, and this is 18th century bread that is kept in the storage in Bavaria. The other thing that I didn't even dream of putting on the checklist are kidney stones. So if you get rid of your kidney stone, you give it to the church as a thank you. And I knew that American customs will not let us have kidney stones crossing the Atlantic. So it didn't even enter. Marianne didn't have to argue with me even once on that issue. I knew not to put it in. But the votive sheep that you're going to see upstairs was on that shelf next to the Christ. A lot of votives that you're going to see in wax in the galleries were coming from those shelves over there. The votive wax lamp was basically since the late 80s in a basement in a museum in Munich. So the labors, and again, thanks to the exhibition department, the labor of bringing all of those things, basically from darkness to light, from storage facilities into the display, is one of the uniqueness of one of the unique aspects of this project. And it also shows you that things like votives is not something that museum directors or institution directors would usually engage with. In 2012, I visited one facility, and I asked to borrow some ancient votives, and they basically told me, you can have whatever you want, because this is not art, and it will never be on display. So we also hope that with these exhibitions, things that all of us who traveled around the world saw everywhere, these things that are not necessarily regarded as high art will start finding themselves their place in exhibition spaces around the world. I'll skip all of that. So for me, the symposium today is a way to open the exhibition and close a process that started almost 9 years ago in 2010 with the symposium. In the original team of symposium participants, we had John Guy and Freddie Jacobs and Diana Fain. All of them are with us here today, and I hope I'm not forgetting anyone. And I'm really grateful for them because they were very patient with me, with my very strange and sometimes uninformative questions about votives. And through those 9 years, they really became partners in crime, or as I say in the exhibition introduction, a kind of a think tank, and we really became almost a global think tank about this project. Today you will hear, so to celebrate the exhibition, today you will hear also speakers that wrote for the catalog: Freddie Jacobs, John Guy, Mitchell Merbeck, Suzanne Preston-Blier, and David Morgan, all written wonderful essays to the catalog and were very patient with the editorial and peer review process. One of them, Suzanne, was very welcoming even to harassments on Facebook as to deadlines and photo rights and all kind of things like that. So we're very thankful for Suzanne to complying to all types of media in answering our questions. Catherine Nottermans is here today, and some of you know that throughout the years I was also teaching seminars around the planning of the exhibition and thinking about ex-votos. It started with very theoretical and text-based and article-based and secondary literature-based seminars, and ended with seminars that basically dealt with the checklist. Throughout those years, and the many times I taught this seminar, Catherine's essay was by far the most favorite essay we read every semester. So it was really a chance for me to invite her. If my seminars usually got an 8 or 8.5 at the most, her essay always received a 10 by all the reviews, by all the students. So I took this moment, I took this opportunity to thank her by bringing her to here and letting her speak and not just read her essay. The final comments today will be made by Gerhard Wolf from the Max Planck in Florence, where I was a doctoral fellow in his Abteilung 10 years ago in 2008. And it was there in that magical, and Michele Mateni, that is with us today, just mentioned to me how magical that place is where I started thinking critically about objects, votives, magical thinking, and beyond. The first volume that came out of this project which is also known as the Gray Volume, was dedicated in his honor, and it is honor for us that he is with us today. So without further ado, and we're already running over time, I would like to invite Freddie Jacobs to take the stand and speak with us. There'll be question and answers in the end of every session, so hold your breath and write your questions carefully. So please, Freddie, thank you.